Aubrey. I grew up in DFW. I don't
Oh,
know.
did you?
Yeah, Aubrey's on what? 35?
It's off of 35. It's the county of Denton.
Oh,
It's not.
Denton County. Okay.
Mhm.
So you're up near Denton.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Have you been there a long time? Are you
I've been here for a while, since about, I want to say, gosh, it's been a long time, 2004.
okay. Okay.
So a good while. I was originally born in New Orleans, but
Ah, Nolans.
Nolans.
Nolans. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Very cool. And you see you have a family and everything, right?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. It's a second marriage. I have one child from the second marriage.
Yeah.
My marriage before was about 13 years. I
Yeah.
have two beautiful daughters from that
Oh,
marriage too.
wow. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm a busy mom, very much stuck in 3D when I don't want to be. So I have to constantly flip flop back and forth. And yeah,
How many kids do you have in the house?
the kids that we have in the house right now are two.
Two.
And I've
Okay.
also got my stepson here.
Okay. So that's always interesting to me. We had a couple of, I think, I can't remember anything, but I think it was, oh, you popped in yesterday on the first show, but
Right.
I think I did two couples yesterday, or at least in the last couple of days. And, talking, it's always intrigued me, uh, couples that are going through this transition we call ascension with kids in the house. I'm like, how do you do that? You know what I mean?
It's
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 crazy.
not easy, and
Yeah.
it's really not easy if you have one, like my husband is awake, but he's not into the whole consciousness
Right.
thing.
Right.
And so that's kind of hard. So I have to really be patient and remember that, I was there.
Right.
I was at the same place before. So,
Yeah.
but I'm happy because for a while there, I didn't even think it was going to happen, but it did.
What do you mean? What?
Meaning waking up, meaning he wakes
Oh,
up.
I got you. I got you. Yeah. See, we
Because
were.
before it was, I'd get a bunch of hell for watching conspiracy theory things and YouTube videos, and he'd be like, "Why are you watching all of that weird stuff?" And
Yeah.
so
Well,
now,
like I was telling one of the couples yesterday, uh, uh, like over the years, we've interviewed a lot of couples and or talked to the woman because the feminine, makes up such a huge part of these communities, and it's proportionate to who comes on the show. But a lot of the story we would hear from, particularly if the woman came on and was just speaking of her marriage or her partnership, how they would say pretty much what you did, which is
yeah,
he's awake, but he doesn't know it, or he's awake, he just kind of runs on instinct, like it's innate, and he's not really into like the topics and the conversation, the commentary, and all that. But yeah, I've always found that interesting. So when did you wake up, or have you always been this weird?
no, I haven't always been this weird, but I had a near death auto accident in
Mm,
2012. And I would say after that is when it started. Um, I was a Christian before my accident. I read the Bible. I went to Bible studies. I had my accident. At the time I had my accident, I was coming out of divorcing my husband at the time of 13 years
okay.
and left with two kids because he moved out of state, and it was very difficult. And those times brought a lot of stress, and I had some family support, but I think in hindsight, I look back, I needed a lot more. I was abusing alcohol, anything to cope. It was too overwhelming for me because I had already had abandonment issues
Right.
as a child. My dad left when, we were five. And, we've always kind of had that abandonment issue lingering on. So it was difficult. But that's when my awakening was starting. I guess I should say it was before my accident because I looked at my life and I realized I'm with a narcissist and a control freak.
Uh huh.
And that was so not my personality. And it was like after kids, he just totally changed. And, I had things I wanted to explore. And, I wanted to write poetry. I got into writing. I wanted to explore my creativity. And he always kind of just mocked it.
Right.
So it was like, and then I guess I started maturing and getting older. And finally, I got the guts to just say, you know what? This isn't how I want to live the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, I think there was a lot of that going on in 2012, and a lot of traumas. Some of them, many of them, I've heard people talk about on this show, were accident related.
Oh, yeah.
One of the couples we just had on, Jenny, can't remember her last name, Danny and Jenny, can't remember, but she got into a car accident and had some
Yeah.
spinal issues, and that was like they had like a first half of the marriage, second half, like so her trauma, which I think was around that time too.
Yeah.
Through that process, she woke up, actually in the nursing home, started
Yeah.
seeing entities and energies and beings, and then started telling him, and it was a very interesting story. Um,
Yeah, some of that stuff happened to me as well, in my near-death experience. It was
so was the
one.
near death was I just want to make sure I understand. Was the near death related to the accident?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
My
this is
heart stopped
2012, right?
2012 in January. My car, I was driving home on a dark road, and it was a farm road, and I was getting off of being on a podcast, and it was in this area I wasn't real familiar with, and I was driving down the road, and I saw that my car was on E, so I called my husband, and he was trying to direct me because I was kind of turned around. I wasn't sure where I was. And when I was on the phone with him, there wasn't a shoulder. It was just gravel and it went down.
Oh
And so
wow.
when I was on the phone with him, the car veered off to the right, and the police report said I remember this. I overcorrected the turn, but then what happened was there was a second time where I went off the road and I overcorrected it and spun like four times, and then the car itself flipped down into a 14-foot embankment, and it ended up being upside down. And they had to get a care flight to come get me out of the car. And I had a metal post that was in the ground, because it was like rebar, I guess, and it went in through my shoulder blade and exited below my liver.
Holy crap.
I know. And how it didn't puncture a major organ right there. But I also broke my C1 and C2 vertebrae.
Wow.
It's the same one as Christopher Reeves. And I had a halo, which is, well, I have a picture of it. I was in a halo for, gosh, 6 months.
Wow.
I mean, that was in the hospital, and I was on life support.
Good gosh.
I know. And they didn't think I was going to live. And a couple times, my heart stopped beating, my lung collapsed. I'm very, very lucky to be here. But I had some freaky things happen too. And the thing that was hard for me was after the accident, I didn't have the verbiage or the language to explain what I experienced. What I had was my Christian foundation. So
Right.
when I would go to explain it, I was explaining it as, there was this man in white that showed up on the side of my bed, and I just assumed, oh, it's probably Jesus,
Uh huh.
because that's where my faith was. And I really need to, write another book about how my beliefs have changed since then. Because I didn't use the word consciousness very much.
So you're in the hospital when this starts.
Oh yeah. The night that they took me in, um, apparently I could describe everything that was going on in the room next to me. and the whole layout of the hospital. And even though I was in the emergency room, it's like when they brought me up to ICU, I was out of it and drugged and obviously, very, very much so traumatized. But I could describe the room that was to my left of the bed and perfectly. I could explain where the Xerox machines were. I overheard their conversations. They were discussing where they were going to go for lunch. Um, it was that had happened. Um, there were a few other things too where I, at one point, realized I was out of my body and I started, it sounds crazy, but there were like these ropes, like a swing. And I just started swinging, and my hair, it felt like it was just blowing back, but I didn't have, like, I couldn't feel me. And so that happened. And then I'm trying to think, there were so many other scary moments. Yes, that happened. And then I was in a restroom, I'm assuming at the hospital. And I'm in the hospital and I'm in this restroom and people come in and I'm like, I need to disappear. And I was in the wall. It's like I was the wall. I
Wow.
became the wall. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm so glad you said that you have weirdos here because this sounds like a trip. And you know the difference when you go through that between the medicine and what's real or not.
Right.
You can tell the difference.
Right.
I also went to a horrible place that I assumed was purgatory. And it was awful. And it's still, I mean, I was traumatized from this. It was really scary. I was in, I was underground, obviously, I could tell. And it was damp and it was wet and it was dark. And it was like I looked up into this tube, or it just kind of went in that direction because it was a circle at the top. And it was like my family members were coming by and looking in and
Jesus.
down at me and paying their respects. So that was really, really scary too.
Wow. Now, this is all happening to you the first night you get there, and this is all conscious thought and words and images
Yeah.
to you and experience to you. You weren't sharing this at this point with anybody, right?
Oh no. And I couldn't because I couldn't speak. I was on life support. I couldn't share it with anyone.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
All I know is I have no memory of anything. All I remember is going off the road and going, this is what I believe, going off the road and going, oh shit, I'm crashing. And my cell phone went flying. But when they found me, they said I was acting like I had my cell phone in my hand and I was talking like to my husband, even though he wasn't
Wow.
on the line.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it, what was I just saying to you? I was just going somewhere with this, and now I
Well,
lost
I was just
your
saying,
thought.
yeah, I was saying, like, at this point, you hadn't talked to anybody. You're totally, this is all happening within your own consciousness.
Yes.
You're experiencing all this stuff, and then, like, it sounds like your human was still there and going, what the hell's going on here? Right?
Yeah. And it didn't just happen right away. I lived in the hospital for about 3.5 months because I had to have like 14 surgeries because
Hmm.
they had to save my right leg as well because it was stuck. Yeah,
God, man.
I know. But, that's what started my awakening because for about 5 years after you get home from the hospital, and for about 5 years from getting home from the hospital after, you're on all these drugs that
Right.
they give you. And I'm talking opiates,
Yeah.
anti anxiety medication, antidepressants, pain pills.
Wow.
And I was on probably 9 different medications, and they all had me taking 2 and 3 hour naps during the day. I wasn't present with my family. And about 5 years into it, my doctor always told me, he said, "You're going to be a chronic pain patient." And, that always disturbed me. So, against his wishes, I weaned myself off of all of that medication. And I said, I'm not taking it and I will not be a chronic pain patient. And I started just getting back into like the anti inflammatory diet and eating more of a plant based diet and trying to heal my body with food.
How many years was this after? How many years was this after the accident that you started
Um,
to shed all this?
2016
Okay,
is when it started.
so
That's
like
when I started, yeah,
yeah,
to
like four
say,
years. Okay.
I don't want to be on these narcotics. I don't want to, you know,
So you experienced this, and from your own words, you were of a Christian perspective,
right.
and so now
Born
you
again,
yeah. So now what was that?
born again Christian.
Okay, and I'm from
Yeah.
Dallas Fort Worth. I've been to a few of those revivals.
I'm sure you have.
So you're first of all, you have this period in the hospital of 3.5 months. Did you have continuing experiences during that time?
I had more, you mean in the hospital?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Like
Okay.
it felt like it was mostly in the hospital. And well, some of it was when I got home too. I
Okay.
had such horrible PTSD from the accident.
Yeah.
It was like I had to seclude myself off from everyone, even my family, in my own room because I could not, any little noise would just send me spiraling. It
Wow.
would just be like my nervous system was just so, you know,
So up to the point of the 4 years before in 2016, you were basically in this mode of the medication and
I was
what have
medicated constantly.
okay. And so then
And I
it's
didn't cook,
some
I didn't clean, I didn't do anything. I wasn't being a mom. I wasn't even being myself. I didn't even know who I was anymore.
do you remember what was the impetus for you to say, I'm done. I'm not doing this?
Yes, I decided that on my own. It was against my doctor's wishes. In fact, he fired me from our relationship because I told him I was so proud of myself. I'm like, I weaned myself off of because it took me months to do it. And I didn't have any problems. And he just said, our relationship's over. Don't ever do that again.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when I started getting, suspicious of this lovely medical system and pissed off. And, because I'm like, I trusted my doctor. I mean, I believed I was going to be a chronic pain patient. I believed every word he said because I was so fragile after my accident and vulnerable.
Right. Wow. That's a lot. And now, were you in the? How long have you been married to your husband?
It's going to be 11 years
Okay.
in July.
So
Yeah.
he was with you through all this.
Oh, yeah. He stood by
Okay.
my side. He was with me. I was
Wow.
on the phone with him while the accident was happening.
Wow.
Thank God I was on the phone with him because, fortunately, a very observant firefighter drove down that road. And I was very lucky that they did because it's an old farm road and I could have just been left there. And it saved a lot of critical time
Yeah.
by this fire truck being there.
Well, obviously it's divine intervention. No doubt about it.
Always believed.
Yeah.
I don't know what that reason is, and it's
Okay.
probably just to be, and I'm not finished, and I haven't heard, learned enough lessons, and I'm here to
So
learn.
so after the 4 years, once you made up your mind, did you kick these medications cold turkey?
Yes, I did, but I
Wow.
didn't just stop. I weaned over the course of probably 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
I watched, I read a lot of things and experimented a little and started cutting and cutting them and cutting them and cutting them till finally I was done. And I don't know how, again, by the grace of God, I didn't have seizures or have anything else go on with all of that because it was really dangerous what I did, but what I had to do.
Well, I've heard other people, and I know people, whether it be prescribed medication or not. Um,
Yeah,
I know a handful of people that just woke up one day and said, "I'm done," and I'm talking
yeah,
about you know, well over 10 years of addiction to, meth, crack, or
right.
both, heroin. And then I've known people that it's taken longer, but that's a powerful transformational, like a physical, it's almost like the anchoring of the physical to unleash the potential of the multidimensional. Did you start to have anything happen uh, once you made that decision after this 4 years? Was there any kind
Yeah.
of correlation between your sensitivities and your abilities and your skills and your
Yes.
memories and all that? Okay.
While I was doing that, it was really interesting because I had no idea what this stuff was, but I was like, I'd be sitting outside and I'd be looking at the clouds and I'd ask my husband, I'd be like, do you see those little white squiggly things in the air that are just moving everywhere? And he's just like, no. And I spoke to some other people that I know in the spiritual community, and they were like, you're seeing energy. That's orgone. You're seeing energy. And I'm like, seeing energy? What? And, one thing just led to the other, that led to the other, that led to the other. Um, but I still had a lot of waking up to do. And I thought, oh, this is it. You just see, everything that's going on in the world and you're not fooled by some of this stuff and that's it. But since then, I've even had more, more moments of awakening and more moments of higher consciousness. And right now, what's really going on, and I find this so interesting, and I don't know if you have any input on this, but what I've been experiencing is how we call our higher self in, and we'll just be like, well, I do, and be like, well, higher self, please come in right now and kind of show me what to do in this situation. And that's been happening. So I've had the higher self come in before, but what's happening is I'm hearing the higher self talking and myself talking, and I'm aware, like I'm above their
So
conversation.
you're like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like I'm witnessing this exchange between myself and my higher self.
Hmm.
It's such a trip. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but that's what's been going on with me.
Well, I don't know either, but I've had I do have that conversation a lot, and I guess I do bear witness to it. I talk about it on the show, Big Todd, Little Todd. Um,
Okay.
but I can't say. I would say maybe I've experienced like 10, 15% of the time what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But
it's just awareness,
mm-hmm,
but it's like, what is that awareness? How
mm-hmm,
can like, I am that awareness too.
yeah,
I'm also that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's what I was saying. Like 10 or 15% of the time, it wouldn't be like me just watching both as separate. I'm still definitely the little Todd. But I will say this: other multidimensional aspects. Um, yes, I'm over here, human, galactic, or human elemental, or you know what I mean. There,
I do.
I can actually that's a little bit different. But with what I would call the soul, I don't. I mean, I can pull up like higher self, like to have a conversation, but and I know that's kind of hard to explain, but the soul part of it for me, it's more of a voice and a feeling. Like it's a voice, but it actually speaks out of my whole body. It kind of has a sensation to it, and it doesn't happen a whole lot. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting topic. Uh,
Yeah.
was there something that, because obviously you were looking around, you were researching, you were utilizing, how do you wean yourself off of these meds? Because that's a hell of a lot of meds too.
It
But
was a lot.
like, was there anything that happened that you kind of went, what the hell? Like with the squiggly lines would be an example, but was there anything that like really struck you? And the reason I ask these questions is because there's a lot of people going through stuff like this, even though it doesn't happen at the same time. And,
With back then, it was just more of, feeling like premonitions and
mm,
seeing energy. And then, like I said, after about 2016, things started I started going down the rabbit hole a little bit further and further. And I started watching people like Tyler Ucaldi, or however you
mm,
say his last name.
mm-hmm,
I watched you a lot. I
mm-hmm.
watched a lot of different people. And, I always heard we are one and unity and, all of this. And I thought I understood what it meant until I understood what it meant. And I was like, there's only one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I feel cheated, almost scammed. And it took me a while to really accept that, because I still struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
It's
mean,
freaky.
we're all in the human condition.
Yeah.
None of us has risen above that. We all got some. But did you have any like? Because everybody's different, and that's why I ask the questions. Because I get messages from people, and they'll say, I communicate with fairies, and uh,
Oh,
and they'll say, I saw somebody on your show talking about their interactions with ETs and Star Family, but because the the openness, I guess, or the range, or the limitless conversational topics here, they they felt something kindred, even though the subject matter wasn't the same. So I know everything's not the same, but the feeling of it, the consciousness of it. But like, did you have any particular faces of the universe or energies of the universe kind of come in and you know show their face or make an impression on you, like a Merlin or a galactic or
no,
elemental?
I've
So
never experienced anything like that.
yeah,
I wish I would,
yeah,
but no, I haven't.
yeah. Well, and I met a lot of people, and they describe it like you, and it's interesting, particularly young people.
Mhm.
It seems to be, for at least with my experience, it seems to be the vast majority where they don't. There's nothing particular or specific, and if so, very very rarely. It's
Mhm.
more of what you describe with your intuition coming online, the premonitions, the whole the whole gamut of higher sensitivities and abilities. So that's
And the telepathy thing, that happened, and that was really awesome, but intense at the same time.
yeah. And like,
Um,
what do you mean by that? Like knowing something or
no, no,
question?
no, no. I was on FaceTime with a friend, and we were doing it. We were trying to send telepathic messages to one
Mm,
another,
okay.
and it got to the point where we were doing it and we started finishing and saying what the other one was going to say right before they'd say it, and then it was like we got quiet, and then there were no words exchanged, but we totally had this big conversation. And then I'm like, am I freaking out? Did that really just happen? Oh
Yeah.
my God. So I called my friend because I thought I was losing my mind, and she's, yes, that happened.
So you mean so it was happening,
It was happening while I was FaceTiming her.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's hard. I can't just do that. Like, I can't say I can just say, oh, okay, I can do telepathy now. It's, I don't know what you'd call it. It was very just like that one time.
It's like we get a little peek. We get little
Yeah.
peaks and stuff, and then we have that whole thing with the doubt, and that seems to be part of it too, like unraveling the doubt, or
Yeah.
I want to say removing, but like removing the illusion of doubt or the power of doubt or something. I don't know. It seems to be because even after all these years and after everything that's happened, especially the last couple of years, where there's been so many people by so many different people's assertions that are waking up. So the
Right.
field is getting bigger, and but you still hear people like even me. I mean, and I talk to people every day, and it'll be 2, 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, or 2 days ago. Like, you know what? Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe this is just
Right.
all.
Well, I went to the mental hospital. Not that I should be announcing this on your live.
Most of us here have too, so don't worry about it.
They thought, I mean, I just completely lost it.
Hmm.
And I was told, oh, you have bipolar one, and yeah, you were delusional, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's there. I think there's too much of this going on now that can be ignored. Because I even doing through doing this show and hearing some people's stories, whether it be a medical or psychiatric, uh,
Right.
many stories of. I mean, everything from. We had a beautiful sister a few years ago called in, talked about her husband, had all of his organs had failed, and
Oh my God.
this would have been back in like 2017, early 2018. She tells this story about how he was supposed to live like a month or two, and that
Uh,
his body had grown another organ that was keeping the whole body together, basically.
that is
And
amazing.
yeah, and then she talked about her doctor, who then was talking to other doctors that this kind of stuff was going on. But also, I think I've heard this too more recently, the last couple of years, where people had what would be classified as psychiatric evaluations, or they were
Yeah.
being treated, and they just kind of did what you did, with
Yeah.
the pharmaceuticals. They just said, "No, I'm done." And
Yeah.
in the interactions with the doctors, the medical team, have these situations where kind of like yours too, where they get disowned.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I heard of one
Shame.
story yesterday where there was a healing. Cancer was involved. It was very invasive. Uh, Energetic healing was done. It's gone, and the
No.
hospital says we don't know what happened. Don't ever come back.
No. That's great, though.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what I mean. I think there's too much of it going on that it can be ignored or slowed down, because there is a embodiment and a physicality to it that is occurring through people like you, who are
Yeah.
defying it, transforming it in the flesh, which is amazing, just absolutely amazing.
I'm thankful to be here. There was a time, quite a few times, where they didn't think I was going to make it, and they were just waiting.
Wow.
And I just remember fighting like hell, screaming at the top of my lungs, but I couldn't scream at the top of my lungs. It was in my consciousness to whatever my maker was. I'm not done. I was just screaming,
Mm.
fighting with so much. But
And because we kind of went over this at the beginning, but I just want to go back to it for a second. So
sure.
when this happened, you had um, you said a tall white figure, uh, someone in the room.
No, I had someone that would show up when the other nurses wouldn't, that would just come to me when I was in the depths of anxiety attacks. And it was like this white figure. It was a human, though.
It was a human.
That It was a human, but it was like in an all white robe.
Definitely wasn't someone that was on the hospital's payroll.
No, no, because no, it's not. He even had like a rope belt, like that kind of looked like an older gown
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like a rope
yeah,
around his
yeah, yeah,
waist.
yeah.
And so that kind of freaked me out, but it was like this person, and I assumed it was Jesus because that was all I had to go off on. Um, but
That's
it would
interesting.
yeah, it would
That's
show up
interesting. Yeah.
at the times when I would be most frightened because I had such bad PSD. I used to be afraid they'd have to have people stay in the room with me because I was afraid I was going to die if I closed my eyes and went to sleep again.
I can't even
And
imagine.
it was the most traumatizing thing in my life I've ever been through.
Have you ever tried to connect with that energy or that entity or that soul family,
No,
whatever?
because I thought it was Jesus.
Okay,
So no,
that would be
I
interesting.
didn't.
And the whole time this is going on, this is what Jenny was talking about yesterday. Jenny Schultz and Danny Schultz. If anyone wants to watch that show, because she let's see, what was it? She was in, she was in nursing home, and then
Okay.
eventually came home. Now they got 4 kids and 25 animals are on a farm, and they were talking about how it was a day by day thing, and how, you know, they just had to take it day by day, like how to take
Yeah.
care of the farm, how to take care of the animals, how to take care of the kids. He's working. She's basically in the state you were in.
Right.
She's, yeah. So, and
We had
and
to hire someone in to help us. We had to because my husband had to work.
right,
I couldn't do anything.
right. That's probably I know they had kind of alluded and even stated they would have to see if they would get help. So I would imagine they had some help too. But I was
Right.
wondering too about like the spiritual growth. Obviously, you have. And you represented kind of like as a nucleus almost really, but this man that has loved you and stood beside you, and then of
Sure.
course your children. I mean, has there been a noticeable transformational effect on the entire family?
Oh, I would say so because I finally, like I said, I was in such a bad place before my accident because it was post divorce and I was medicating on purpose to
Mm,
get screwed up
right.
because I couldn't handle the stress. And not that that's a reason, but that was my reason. And, I just, it, it was one of those things where after the accident, you're so thankful to be alive and to know, and how close you came to death. You're so thankful. All of a sudden, it was like, and you didn't know me before, but I just didn't care about anything that was materialistic. I didn't care about anything about any of that. I was so humbled and brought literally to my knees to even be here, to even speak about it. Um, you start living life differently with your eyes open. What happens is relationships matter more to you
Yeah.
because let's face it, we're all here to master love and self and master of self, but mostly to love. And all of those relationships are love, and they're all tests and mirrors for us to learn how to just love. And I was overcomplicating it before my accident. I was thinking, well, you got to go to church and I've got to do this and I've got to accept the Lord Jesus Christ as my savior. And, you don't have to do that. We judge ourselves. That's the thing that happened to me mostly from my accident is I realized I was not going to be judged.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves and it's
Right.
worse than anything you can imagine
Right.
because it is like a life review, and you're feeling every single feeling of shitty things you did to people. And all of that combined together makes you kind of live your life differently. And, I don't do it every day. I try to. I try and keep that in check, but, sometimes you slip up.
Well, I mean, isn't that what we're doing? I mean, we can describe it so many different ways. As trying to, hit the 100th percentile in self-love, which, which really, I don't know about anyone else, but I mean, to me, every degree is regulated by a little less self-judgment. And
Yes.
I guess
And acceptance, like you said, acceptance of self. And also, I had to go through a lot of forgiveness of self
right,
because I feel like I naturally put myself in that accident,
right,
and it's hard. You have to forgive yourself. You have to be willing to look at the ugly stuff. You have to just cry. You have to just let it out, hug yourself. I did a lot of hugging myself and just trying to forgive yourself for all those things that haunt you and shame you,
right.
you know?
And then yeah, and you get to a point. Maybe it's just what we're getting to now, but it's like it's everyone. I mean, for me, everyone's been subjected to the same thing. We all
Yeah.
have the same, I guess, what would you say, the same makeup, one way or the other. It looks different on the surface, but we have the self judgment. We have the prejudices, the biases. We have, whatever, the patterns and behaviors that get ingrained in us. But it's like these past events, even as as short as yesterday. If it's yesterday or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the resolution is the same and the quote unquote healing is instantaneous. And for
Yeah.
me, what that means is that it has no relevance anymore as I wake up today and conduct my life. It has,
Right.
I should say,
And
it has less and less relevance. Yeah,
the way
relevance.
that I know that I've healed a lot is because I can finally talk about it and I don't break down and cry.
Right.
I can finally just talk about it and I'm honest with myself. I can admit how I contributed to everything, whereas before I was very much in denial. Um, there's a lot of things I think that change for the better. God forbid when you have something like that happen, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
guess
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I guess that's the only thing you can do is to keep yourself going is to try and look at all of the good things instead of all of the trauma
Yeah.
I mean, you need to look at the trauma, but you also need to look at how much it's made you grow, how much stronger you are, what you've dealt with, how you can encourage others.
Yeah, and I think too, especially if we consider the last 10 years, to also take into account on a personal level, on a collective level, the 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 coding we've received, or the information, or the memories, or the abilities, or the synchronicities that we have, and of course the guidance we've received to push us, or to help us, like in your case, to make that choice, get off these meds, change my life, or even move, and all the different things all of us crazy people have done that put us where we
Right.
are today, that make no sense. They make no
Right.
sense in the old world.
But they're all divine. I mean, it's
Yeah,
all divinely orchestrated.
yeah,
And, when you can look back in hindsight and see that, it's really cool.
yeah, yeah. And
It's
then
healing. That
to have the collective, however big that collective is, but like in our own little world, to have the collective parallel experiences, uh, which is kind of a truthful validation, not a validation where we're trying to substantiate ourselves, but a
no.
validation of, wow, there's something bigger than all of us going down.
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
because I mean, I don't know about the rest of history, but if, at least 4,000 shows, how many people had something occur? Let's just specify it even to a group that was in a car accident. I mean, I just talked to Gina yesterday. She had spinal issues. She almost became paralyzed, just like you. But
Right.
how many of them have had these miraculous, the number of miraculous instant and healings that took place over a short period of time, not to mention the transformational influence that it's had on their lives and those around them. I mean,
Right.
just in this last 10 years, I can't even imagine that there was that many in the previous 100 years, or whatever the number is. So there is
Yeah.
something bigger going on. And to your point, let's look at that. Let's look at what we got going for us. Let's look at this trajectory we're on.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Exactly. And more of even in the spiritual community, it needs to stop. But it's like they're just, not some, but all. Um, so much judgment out
hmm
there. Like we preach all this love and light, and we preach forgiveness and self care and self love and all of this stuff. And then it's like when someone's obviously hurting and maybe doing, I don't know, things that, you know, I don't know, that are less tasteful or whatever, so many people in the spiritual community are so quick to judge, and that's kind of been hard for me to deal with too. It's like, my God, is this even like, are these people even awake? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like, I don't know how to explain
No,
it, but that
I get what you're saying. I
that
ta-
kind of like got me off my path for a while because it kind of put a distaste in my mouth, and I kind of went and did my own thing for a while, and then I came back.
I've heard a lot of
And
people say the same thing, and I've made these remarks. in real. So I probably put out you know couple hundred, 300, 400 memes a week, and they're all over the place. I don't like specify anything. I try to put funny stuff, and I try to put, and they don't all apply to me personally. I just feel like they might be able to help people, so I try to make it very diverse. And
That's
one
what I do.
and so I don't really go. I don't go back and comment. I haven't for years, just because energy wise, time wise, whatever.
Right.
But what I do get, obviously, is notifications, and I like to click on them, especially if it's comments, just to get a feel, to stay in the frequency field, to get a feel for, because I do occasionally put up a meme that I delete, right?
Right.
Because I didn't look at it close enough or whatever. But what I notice in that is the self righteousness. That may
Yeah.
not be the right word. Uh, the the rebuttal to the expression, and it could be somebody's video, it could be somebody's post, it could be whatever.
Right.
But and so I've been working on this. We've been working on this Soulogy network for the expansion of it that I talked about the other day for 4 or 5 years, and I always think to myself, wouldn't that be cool if we put into this universe this alternative social media that you can't comment, right? Because you ever see that meme that says, if you I just posted, if you don't if you're going down the feed and you see something you don't like, you don't have to say anything. You don't have
Right.
You can just keep going. See, and I think that's what you're talking about. I think it's part
Yeah.
of our multi-layer identity shedding that we have to go through. It's that ego, or whatever you want to call it, intellect. I'm more comfortable with
It
that.
is. And it's
Trying
going
to,
against,
yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, it's just going against everything that we're,
Mm-hmm.
trying to change. It goes against self-respect.
Yeah,
It goes against lots of things.
yeah,
And it really can put a distaste in someone's mouth to where they just don't want to participate. There's a lot of groups that I just stopped
yeah.
participating in.
Well, I mean, and again, and I've said this too. Like, we're the ones that are supposed to be out there leading the way, and not to
Right.
come down on us. I mean, again, we're all subject to the human condition, but yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's like the need to be right. I think well, maybe that is self righteousness, but the need to be right is clearly an intellect slash egoic uh, machination. It's
It
just
is. It's all ego.
so yeah.
Yes.
And like the last couple of years, like what's it been like for you? Have you been able to? You talked about being able to basically go through the darkness to find the light. To kind of summarize it, and then
Right.
and then as far as like higher sensitivity skills and abilities, memories, what have you seen the results of your expanded awareness due to your experience? What kind of results have you seen both for you and those around you? And since you're family based, I think that's important, because I think we're going to see more and more people coming out that actually have families in the house. You know what I mean? Because a lot of us are
It
older
changes.
and we're past that point.
Right. It changes a lot of the relationships for the better, I think, because I'm not so interested in fixing things all the time. Like, I can allow my children to be, if it's something that's going to be, affecting causing harm to themselves or others, of course. But I kind of like have backed off from being that helicopter mom.
Mm,
Like, I'm letting them have their experience and realizing that each one of them, while I have three, all three of them are completely different people. They
hmm
each have a different perspective. They each have a different outlook on life. And so that's one way that it's helped. I had damaged relationships with my kids from the divorce of my first marriage, because back then their dad had left and then I had started drinking. So and ever since my accident, me coming to terms with all of that and realizing, oh, you're just using that as a band aid, Gina, because I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to
hmm
feel anything. I wanted to purposely numb myself.
hmm
And um, now that I feel, you realize how much you've missed out on, and you can't go back to that time. All you can really do is, with the awareness that you have and the new awareness that you have, is operate and live from the heart and try and enjoy those moments, choice by choice, moment by moment, with the people that you love and people that you don't love. Try and find place in your heart for them as well. I mean, that's what's going to save this world, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot on this show. and
Yeah.
but when you really get down to it, and it's coming. It's here. We got to do this. Like, we got to do this from a conscious living, humans on point. Nobody's gauging our performance. Nobody's there that can actually 100% of the
Right.
time witness our integrity. And it's so much about the integrity, the honesty, the humility, that we actually say, okay, just like if you take the energy of somebody puts up a post and somebody has to say, no, that's not right. Okay.
Right.
It's the same thing. If we think something and send it out there, you know what I mean? It's like the
It is.
responsibility has come home, and that's maybe above all else what we're aligning with is to actually, when we say, spirit, mind, body, soul, or whatever it is, where we actually, as a whole, as an entire entity from the physical body, which contains everything, actually master our thoughts, or whatever you want to put it, or realign our thoughts, or convert the old patterns that we've been used to, or whatever. But I think it's going to take this personal, nobody's watching you, kind of a pay it forward integrity, keeping yourself in check and owning your shit. I think I know it sounds kind of, and it's not
No, it
easy.
doesn't.
It's not easy.
Yeah. Right.
But I guess
It's
I
not.
guess what I'm trying to say is, because this happened to me 2 days ago, and I feel like I'm on my stuff. But I had worked a couple days in the office. I had a fitful night. I get something presented to me, and I went off. But it wasn't like went off like, oh, you did that to me, so I'm going to do this to you.
Right.
It was just a reaction, an old reaction, but it had a lesson. And so after I reflected a little bit, I realized that it was the same thing. That no matter what anyone does to me, I cannot control that. But what I can control is how I conduct myself, right?
Yes.
And if just because someone did something to me is no excuse. And
No.
that's what I learned the other day. For myself anyway. That's what I learned.
And that's huge. It really is.
Yeah.
It's sad too. Like a lot, like what you're saying is it's time for us to do the work too. I think a lot of people often feel like they have to do something really big. And it's like, you don't. You can just go out, and as you conduct your business out and about, just be friendly with people
Yeah.
and help people out.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what's sad about it is when I go and do it, a lot of the times people just freeze and they don't even know like how to respond to you because they're so not used to people caring. People just like
Right.
they're walking around with blinders on doing their business.
Right. That's right.
And it's sad, and we need to bring the human connection back, you
Yeah.
know? That's
Yeah.
what we really need.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
So now, are you a practitioner? Do you work with people?
Oh, no, I'm not a
Okay. I
practitioner,
just
and I
wondered.
stay at home with my girls.
Oh well, that's you know, that's well, that's it. Those are little universes right there. What are you talking about?
Oh, I know. I know.
They,
I'm not saying I don't. That is work.
I know. I had 4 girls, and yeah,
Yes, I
particularly
show and
particularly girls are particularly girls are a lot of work. I got a kick out of
oh,
that couple, Danny and Jenny Schultz, because they had 4 girls, or he had 4 girls, and he had his
wow.
wife going through this transformation, and he was kind of like your partner at first, like,
Right.
okay, if it works for you, I'm happy, I love you, I'm going to support you, you know, but at some point He's shifted over. Now he's a crazy guy too, right?
No,
But
but that's good. It probably works for their family because how
mm,
challenging to not have that with 4 kids. Oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
I know, it's wild. It's wild. It really is. So, where do you see yourself? And I'm so happy you came in,
Oh, thank you.
and
I'm so
no,
honored you said I could.
yeah, it's. I mean, like I think this is really, and I spent uh, a lot of yesterday trying to catch up, and I'm going back to emails and messages now. I didn't even realize it back into April, and we had put a call out in a couple of months ago about particularly women stepping up, and because a lot of them had been slowly, hey, I'm getting pushed. I got to come out. I don't want to come out. But yeah, just even probably from yesterday, we've got all of next week, 15, 20 shows. A lot of them are going to be,
Oh, that's awesome.
of course, the makeup in these communities is, at least 2 out of 3 are women. So there'll be
Yeah,
some men. We got one coming on after you. Um, but yeah, I'm just excited to see people from the community coming on and sharing their experience because I don't believe it's in the lessons anymore or let me tell you. I think a lot of those type of platforms that deliver, let me tell you what you do when this happens. Let me tell you this about life, and they don't. I don't think they're going to stick. I think what's going to stick is what you're talking about. How do we have to change this world from us, and
right.
it's become an all or nothing kind of thing. And I think these things are not carrying that frequency of equilibrium, of equality, truth frequency.
Right.
As we reach higher truths every day, I think that's what's going to work. These types of conversations, publicly and privately. So
Yes,
I
and I
applaud you.
thank you, Todd, for
Mm.
this platform. I mean, I've been watching you for years. You probably don't know because I wasn't that
I've
didn't
seen
make
you.
my
No,
presence.
I've seen your name out there over the years on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm really honored you had me on, and I
mm.
learned so much off of your shows, and
That's
a lot of it resonates,
mm,
and I love your guests. So I just want to thank you for all that you do.
mm, absolutely.
Really.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome, and thank you for coming on. And
Oh,
we'll have to do
absolutely.
it again sometime. And
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, yeah, I really appreciate it. So
Thank you, Todd.
all blessings to you and your family, and
To you as
I'll,
well.
we'll be back in an hour with an interesting show. The guy's name is Lynx. I think some people know him. I can't remember his last name. He's an artist, a unique type of artist, and so we'll be having a conversation, hearing some music. And on top of that, thank you everybody for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every day as we're getting this thing up and going again after a couple of months of intermittent Soul Speaks 5Ds. So thanks.
Thank
Peace
you,
out.
Todd.
Okay,
Bye bye.
take care.